everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here with Simon Says Stamp and their new release, Hey Bestie. And for this, we are going to create some striped backgrounds using our thin cardstock. So this is the stamp set that I will be using, and it is called Like You Words. What's great with this set is you can build. So you can say, I really like you. You could say, I really like you so very much. You could say, I still like you, which I think is funny. I like you, or I really like you more than you know. My also other favorite is, if humans were more like you, the world would be a better place. I think that is perfect. So let's get started. So I have some thin cardstock. I love that thin cardstock. I get it from Recollections, from Michael's. It's the Recollections version. And it's very thin. And I use it for matting and so forth. I don't like to use my 110 or 120 pound weight cardstock. It gets really thick. And I don't know. I just don't like the feel of it. But I love this. And I love using this cardstock to make striped backgrounds. So I just went to town. No measuring at all. I just used my Tim Holtz tiny guillotine and just started cutting some strips. I pulled out my double-sided 6x6 sheets by scrapbook.com of double-sided adhesive, and I'm just setting up my 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch panels. And now we're just going to have fun putting these strips together. So I have different color schemes, and I am going to show you each of the color schemes. Now, the first 3 that I'm going to put together are what I'm going to refer to as the normal way. And I'm saying quotes, or making quotes like you can see me. And what I mean by that is just laying the strips side by side to each other. No gap. You're just creating your own pattern paper, basically. Now, and again, because I'm using this thin cardstock, and again, I'm not saying the cardstock is bad. I'm just saying it's thin. Okay? And the piece that I'm building on is also the Recollection 65 pounds. So technically, in my mind, I'm making a 130 pound piece of paper. I'm just saying. But because these 2 pieces are thin, it's going to have a good thickness. It's going to be very stable. But I'm just setting these next to each other. And the first 3 panels that I'm creating are going to be set this way. Now, of course, this is a very bright rainbow, so I do want to make sure that I'm placing these colors in the same order of going across this. Once I get to the end, it's a very relaxing part to trim all of these pieces off. I don't know why, but it's fun. I will show you that too. So the next one is in a pink shade. Now, for the rainbow, we had that in a specific order. Do your strips have to be in a certain color order? Do they have to be variegated? Absolutely not. So I'm just having fun for this one going across the short side of the card panel to just lay down my colors. Again, laying them next to each other, creating that flat surface. You can build on that surface. And we are eventually going to die cut through these papers. Now, didn't know how that was going to work. So what I did like, this is the first time I'm actually using the scrapbook.com 6x6 adhesive sheets, the double-sided. And let me tell you what, they are nice and strong. They have some great adhesion going on there. What I found I did like about them is the fact that they're extremely sticky when you press on them, okay? So, and you'll see that in a minute. Now, my finger's close to that edge because I don't want it to shift. I want to make sure that I'm staying next to each other because, again, now I am going in a variegated sense with my papers, but going across the long side of this panel. And because my finger, my left hand, is holding that strip down, you can see that part was adhered, where the rest of it that touched, I was able to lift up. So it gets really sticky when you add pressure. So you do have that ability to move these. Now, for this panel, I wanted to do something different. I could continue to lay them next to each other. Not only am I choosing yellow cardstock at this time, but you can see I'm staggering them away from each other. I'm not laying them right butt up next to each other. And this is why I'm going to now layer on top of these, making sure that I put pressure in between those two. I want to see just how really sticky this double-sided adhesive is. Plus, I wanted to see if this would work. So, and it pretty much did, and I really like the effect. One of the things that I loved doing when I sewed, and I still do so, is I loved and I enjoyed making strip panels. And what I would do is take my fabric, tear it into strips, and literally just sew it onto a piece of batting. So I was quilting at the same time that I was layering. They would be on angles. They would be crooked. There was just, again, for those of you that have seen my videos, I'm not a 90-degree person sometimes. Most of the time. All right, all the time. It's very tough for me to do that. I like the difference. Now, this one here didn't stick too well, so I'm just adding a piece of 1/4-inch double-sided tape so that I can get that down there. I do check this panel and shake it, as I'm shaking myself here, to make sure that everything is stuck. And everything was. So, for this one, I'm going to add some thicker panels. And now I'm going to build around these. So a little bit more of a layering effect, kind of pulling in exactly what I was describing before with my fabric strips. Very on the angle, not straight. I'm okay that I'm layering over those papers and so forth. I'm adhering this many different ways. So I can use if you've got that 1/4-inch or 1/8-inch strip of double-sided adhesive, or maybe you have liquid adhesive, you can use all of that and you're going to see it. Sometimes I take these strips and put them next to each other, but for the most part, I'm layering, I'm angling, I'm making them crooked, I'm setting them on angles against each other. And this is my favorite panel. It brought back some memories for me. Very odd, I know, but it did. I had a lot of fun creating these panels. And again, if you are that person that loves paper, that just has tons of this paper, this is just another way to use it and to create a background. Do you have to die cut into these? Absolutely not. You can leave them by themselves. So you do have so many more options when it comes to your paper. Can you use pattern paper for this? Sure, why not? You can have those big strips that I laid down first. That could be pattern paper, and you could, focus in around with the solid paper. I have an idea. Yes. But again, I'm just layering the paper on top of each other. Again, on an angle, crooked. Some are next to each other, but then towards the end, they cross over. So again, you've got all of these angles. It's creating dimension. It's creating texture. It's making this panel thicker. So my real test, as I was coming up with this idea, is, can I die cut on this? Wasn't quite sure, but I was confident I was going to be able to do that. And well, that sounds funny. The reason is because this is very thin cardstock. It's good cardstock. I love this cardstock. That's why I use it when I mat, when I layer, when I just want to create those different layers to come across in different colors, this is the paper that I use. To me, it doesn't make sense to use 120 pound or 110 or 80 pound and just layer all of that paper on top of each other. If it's one mat, yes. Multiple, no. This I find very therapeutic, to cut all of these edges off of the panel. I do use my paper creaser to go along this to make sure that they are stuck down and adhered and nothing's going to fall off. And my long shears are perfect through this. Now, and that's what kind of gave me the clue that this was going to be fine to die cut, because it was cutting through them like butter. So these are the panels. We have a vertical, a horizontal, a diagonal, and the dies that I'm using are my Simon Says double stitched on either side. So I'm using my circle, I'm using my rectangles, and I'm just going to go to town and die cut my pieces at this point. And as always, I do that off camera. So you can see I used a rectangle, I used my circle once, but then I left and you can see I cut through the blue panel. These are the cards that I made. All right, and we have this in normal time here. So I took the big sentiment, like you, and that was sitting in the cutout. Now for the panel that I didn't die cut through, I used a cutout with that die and placed it on top of that panel. And then I just added the sentiments to go around. So for the blue, I have I love you, but I also like you, which I thought was funny because that's just me. If humans were more like you, the world would be a better place. I stuck that inside the panel, like you. So these are all the different cards. These are raised up using the double-sided foam, and the double-sided foam that I used is by scrapbook.com, becoming a fan. And then I am going to save my cutouts that I used. So here is again the stamp set that I used. I think it's a really fun sentiment type stamp. I like the ones that you can build upon. They are a little more work, you know, you got to build and you got to put them all together. But they do give you so many more options. So as always, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope I gave you some idea on what you can do with your paper. You know, something else, another design that you can create. So all the products that I used will be listed down below as always, and as if you have any questions or comments, please leave those down below as well, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe, be part of my group. Make sure you ring the bell so you know when the next video is live. And I hope everyone is having a great day. But always remember what's most important to me. Always be creative.